see. My watch says 2 o'clock.
Well,
Okay, we're going to call the June 26th agenda review to order. At this point, Ms. Bowie, would you call the roll, please?
Good afternoon. Pete Wildebohr,
Present.
Pat Bradford,
I am here.
Josie Barnhart,
Here.
Melissa Mason,
Here.
Hugh McManus,
Present.
Stephanie Walker,
Here.
Stephanie Craybill,
And here she is.
Stephanie Craybill.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, board members, for being here. Just a quick thank you again to everyone who was able to join us at Ashley High School the other day. Mr. Smith, thank you for putting that together. Certainly do appreciate that. I think that was a very, very good effort for everyone and hard work, and I really do appreciate that immensely. At this point, we will have our invocation. I'm looking to see. So, I don't know who's going to do it, but the person will do it.
Hi, my name is Matt Moorhead, and I'm one of the pastors of Crossway Chapel of Wilmington. And just wanted to thank you all for the way you serve our county and our area. Grateful for each one of you, and privileged to be able to pray for your meeting today. God, I do want to thank you for each person represented in this meeting, in this leadership team, for the Board of Education. I'm thankful for the role that they play in serving the students and families and individuals in our county. And God, I ask for your blessing on this time today in their meeting. I thank you for the ways in which you have guided and strengthened them during this complicated and difficult season. And I pray that you continue to grant wisdom where they lack it. Your word says that it's good to give thanks to you for all the good things you have done. And your word also says that where we lack wisdom, that we should come to the one who provides the wisdom that we just simply do not have on our own, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we ask on their behalf that you grant them wisdom where they lack it, that you grant them unity where they need it, where they need vision for the future, even if that future is just a couple of steps in front of them, that you grant them the vision to see what needs to be done and how to lead well, how to serve well. And I pray that you strengthen them for that task. But thank you for the teachers, for the administrators, and for the board as well, and just the way in which they serve and lead the education system in our county. And I ask that you go before them, and in this time that you truly superintend their time, that there be a humility and graciousness in the way that they're able to operate with one another that would help them to effectively serve our county. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you that you put people in positions of leadership and service in order to benefit our city and our county, and I pray that their leadership would do just that. Thank you for your kindness to us. I'm grateful that you are ultimately the one that we trust in, and pray that we would do that more and more each moment and each day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mason to lead us in the pledge. Ms. Mason. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this point, I would entertain approval of the agenda. I would like to make that motion.
Sure. So moved. I'll
Okay,
second.
Ms. Bradford has that motion. We have a second.
Second.
Ms. Barnhart has a second. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Ms. Crable.
is this the right time to discuss going forward with this format, or is that something that we do at a regular meeting? The agenda, this agenda review process, we said we were going to look at it for 3 months, and at what point do we come back to do that? Is that at a regular meeting, or is that at this meeting?
I think we probably, I would think, and I think Mr. Weber's online, but I think it would be at a regular meeting because that's where,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
and that's correct. I mean, you could add it to an agenda review agenda itself, or you could do it at the regular meeting, either one.
okay. Anything else? You look
I would
like-
just like to add, I
Yes,
would
ma'am.
like to have a discussion on it, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. I think we should.
To revisit. Do we add it to, is that where we add it to?
We can do that.
We add it to the green paper.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? If not, we have a first and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, before we get into the review of proposed agenda items, which is our next item, I just want to say one quick thing. I've written down so I say it properly. Board members, before we move on, I want to let you know that I've heard your concerns about the length of our meetings, and I agree 100%. I don't think that any of us want to be here at 11:30 at night or 10:30 at night even. If you do remember our last meeting, we had a closed session. It lasted well over 2 hours, and it had some very, we're not going to talk about what we talked about, but it had some very important information presented at the meeting, and it did add to the length of the meeting. But to keep our meetings at a reasonable length, I would now like to ask each board member and myself, so each one of us, to think about this, so me included in this. We need to really look at what we're doing today, because today is the crucial thing to make next week, or not next week, but the following week, a better meeting, I think. For instance, if we have a 5-minute topic, but we know it's going to be significantly longer, please share that today. Today's the day to say that, hey, this is going to, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. As Ms. Crable just did, she said, is this a good time to do it or another time? So if we're going to add something, then, we need to keep that in mind as we add up the minutes. I've actually asked Ms. Crable to keep, she's going to do that anyway, so I know she was. So I've asked her to keep up so we can see at the end of our meeting today, if she says, hey, Pete, we're going to be here till 3:30 in the morning, then we can start saying, well, can we put this off into August? Can we look at something? So there is an avenue. It's not just like, okay, we know that at the end of the day, we're going to be here till midnight. Maybe then we say, okay, what is there anything on the agenda that we have that we said that's great, we want it there. I'm not saying we won't do it or we will silence any discussions, but we will be able to say, hey, this is something that could wait till possibly to August. And like I say, I'm as guilty as anyone else. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody else. I'm pointing fingers, I think it's something that we all probably share in at some point in fashion. So, again, we all ran on transparency. I think it's really important let's use this meeting to, as Ms. Crable just said, let's look at this, is this working, is this not working? When we end up with a 11:30 meeting, then, I agree with everybody else, maybe it's not working, but I think we really got to take advantage of this meeting. So, all right, I've said enough and I've talked too much, so we're done with that. So we will go ahead and carry on. We have, just a quick reminder, we'll start with the first green sheet. We have a 4 o'clock planned meeting, and just kind of give you a synopsis of that. Again, to be as open and transparent as possible, talking about student discipline. We've had Ms. Bradford and Mr. McManus both bring this up. This is obviously a huge topic that we want to talk about, but I think it needs to be more than us talking about it, or even us in central office talking about it. I've talked to Dr. Faust. We're going to invite, I think, about 10 principals. Totally understand, and I've made that very clear that that some of them may be on vacation. So if they're not here, there's not any problem, no concern, whatever. But we would like to hear from principals, and some of the things, and at different levels, inner city, country, so all sorts of different country, out of county. Thank you, county. Okay, I'm talking. Get me going on. But county, so basically throughout the county, different principals. Not everyone was invited, but we have come up with a pretty good list. High school, middle school, elementary school, so we can talk about discipline. And really what I hope to get from that, and that's not what necessarily you need to hope to get from, but I'm hoping to hear from these folks and to, what can we do to help make it better in the classroom, in the school, in the hallways, so that we can, go ahead and, actively try to do that for them. So, does anybody have any discussion about that? Oh, and one quick question, Dr. Faust. Is it going to be here or there?
So that was our question, and sorry, I didn't get to
Oh.
cover, but, so the goal would be for us to be able to have it over in Spencer, and the reason why, in here, this has to be set up for the individuals to come and sit down at your board meeting, and in Spencer, there is a boardroom over there, and so my push would be down in Spencer, and you could have a work session sitting
Right,
as
yes.
you, versus sitting up top, and then you can actually have the information. So that's what we were talking about, so.
Is that going to be ready? Because getting in there now, getting into the boardroom, going in the side or going in the back, and, I mean, is the vestibule construction going to be ready for us to get in there?
Let's go there, yes, we'll be ready.
Okay.
At 4 o'clock, right. And then, so wear your walking shoes. Yes, ma'am?
I'm grateful that we added the discussion to have principals included. That was some feedback. Speaking with a few principals, and they said I would love to be part of that discussion. I know policy 4300, which was their student behavior, came up a few months ago, and so we've held that in policy. So I don't know if that's something. I'm assuming Ms. Barnum is leading that discussion, that we'll be able to address some of potential changes or justifications of why the changes were made to policy.
And I think that was my question. I've got a little bit of an outline after having some conversation with several of you, a little bit of an outline for maybe probably 7-minute overview. Is that what you want me to do to get that started? And then that'll elicit the discussion. And I do think policy needs to be brought up for policy input.
Mr. McManus?
I'd like to, if we're going to do a discipline discussion, which I include attendance, I'd love, I guess you could black out the names, to see a list of the students by high school and grade that have 11 or more absences and their grade for the year. I think that might give us a little insight, or maybe not. But
So is the inference that you're making is that if we,
Yes, ma'am.
is the inference you're making that if kids aren't there, then they're the disruptors?
No, ma'am, I'm saying if kids aren't in school, then the academic success of the individual and the school is or are affected.
Well,
And I'd like to see the attendance records, because you hear it yourself about certain schools have terrible attendance. And I've not seen, I know what we print as a whole, but I think it might, and that's why when you mentioned the attendance discussion, I think every school's a little different as far as expectations. You just can't make one general blanket for everybody, because every school has different situations. But I just thought I'd like to see that, if that's something people would agree.
Yes, ma'am.
So my thoughts, when I'm looking at this, the person leading it, it's Pat and Hugh, or is the person leading it going to be Julie Varnum?
Well, I think it was put down as Pat and Hugh because they were the ones that brought it up, but I think Ms. Varnum,
Because somebody needs to facilitate us, in a discussion like this. And I just wanted to remind that we only have like 45 minutes.
Right.
So my thoughts are that when it says review and discuss student discipline, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? So that's what my concern is. We're going to get in here like our previous work session, that we really didn't have a idea of what we were talking about. So, I mean, like what we were going to talk about. So I would respectfully say that what Mr. McManus is suggesting is a good topic, but perhaps not for this work session, because we got a lot. We only have 45 minutes, and if that, 40, because we're going to have to pick up from there, walk over here, get ourselves situated. So it's really only 40 minutes.
Well, go ahead, Ms. Barnhart.
I just wanted to add to that, with principals coming, I know we have the discipline matrix, and some of us might have not had the opportunity to look at that and study that in depth, so that might be something good to help educate us as far as some of the discussion to have, because it might be, I think what Ms. Crable is getting at is the follow-up of what's going to happen after the work session, and it might be that the matrix gets added to or changed, not by us, but by the principals in the room. So that might be good discussion and feedback while we're having this conversation. If this is something that is working for our students, if it's not working, why is that, to help us understand what that is, so that we can hopefully help make better changes moving forward.
Right. And I think overall, I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents, I think that, overall, I think, like Mr. McManus's point, I mean, I don't think that there's a problem with getting that data together. I mean, it may not be a major topic, but it may be a major topic. We may see something that, oh my goodness. So, I mean, just to have that as far as a handout, at least to start, but I think we do need, I will agree, I think we need to take advantage of the principals while they're there. And let's hear from them. I mean, that's again, my focus in this, Ms. Grayville's question, what's the focus of this? I think we need to hear from the people in the schools and on the ground, in the classroom, to say, hey, how can we make it better for you? What can we do, to make it better for you, and most importantly, better for the students? I mean, that's the thing, is at the end of the day, we want to make it as good as possible. You know, I don't think anybody, you know, I dare say that I don't think there's any principal that says, hey, I want to suspend 25 kids every day. You know, so let's see, how can we make it better? Is there something proactively we can do? I think, you know, this might tie into some of the task force work, that what can we do proactively to help it be better at school? You know, Mr. McManus's point, I think, is that if a student's not in school a lot, then they get behind, and then, you know, what are they going to do? Well, I'm going to cut up because I want to do something. So, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson, you had your hand up before?
I was just going to follow up on Ms. Craybill's comment. The security vestibule is under construction, so the front entrance is closed. The Spencer boardroom is open, and you're welcome to use that. Just enter the back of the building.
The back of the building, okay.
And you still have to press the button, somebody still has to buzz you in. I don't know if our badges work there.
We'll be back there.
Okay.
Ms. Walker?
I imagine that some of the feedback we're going to get is going to be tied to mental health. And I really hope that we, as a board, are going to be prepared to really look at that and tie it to what we can do, whether it's in policy, whether it's in assistance with, I don't know, but I would like to hopefully go into this with an open mind and really kind of take to heart what principals do give us for feedback, because that is an emerging theme in a lot of areas. So.
Yes, ma'am. Very good. Yes, ma'am?
It seems that if we have 45 minutes, we should actually create an agenda for that 45 minutes and allot time slots for everything, so that no one goes away completely frustrated that what they wanted to talk about didn't get talked about, or so on. I like the idea of Mr. McManus of understanding the attendance component. Thursday night, we had a parent who stood up. We all heard him. And he said that his daughter learned to vape in the 6th grade, and she got addicted. He didn't find out until, I think, last year. And, you know, that the parent in the other conversations explained that, you know, his daughter is afraid to go to the bathroom. She goes all day without going. So the activities of what happens in the bathrooms is something I would like to have discussed, because I have heard for at least 2 years that the bathrooms are a big part of all of the problems. If we're going to have the principals there, then we can address individual things and get feedback in terms of, is there drugs in there? Is there violence in there? Is there smoking, you know, whatever. I've heard there's the gamut, including sex, happening in the bathroom. So I'd like somebody in authority to address that, to where it counts as discipline.
So can I help?
Yeah.
So 45 minutes, I don't think you'll get any of. What I want you to be able to walk away with, I think what all of you want to walk away with is what next? Mm-hmm. So it sounds like we need a longer work session or multiple work sessions. Mm-hmm. Because what will happen is, if we're looking at data across all of our schools, we first have to tease out where did if that's like, we would have to have principals tease out where was the infraction, where did it happen? And then it's like, you have classroom. Was it the bathroom on the first floor? Was the bathroom on the second floor? Was it teacher? Was it cafeteria? So you have to put those variables in place. Then you're wanting to look at chronic absenteeism, those individuals who have more than 10 absences or more than 7 absences. And then you're wanting to pair that with failing grades. And then you may want to say, if a student has a GPA of less than X, what does their behavior look like? Those are multiple different variables, and I'm going to tell you, you won't be able to walk away. Because as soon as she starts in on that, and then if you're wanting to look at policy and then look at mental health, because then we'll have to tease it down to say, okay, well, what were the referrals for social worker? Was it a referral for the guidance counselor? It's big.
Yeah, it's huge.
So my question would be, where would you want to start? If these are the 3 big titles, would you want to do multiple?
Well, I should have said, not just to begin with, being interested in high schools. That limits a lot. I didn't realize you thought I meant all the way down to.
Well, see, that's still going to get you, I don't know.
It's a lot of kids, it's 13,000 kids.
For discussional sake, an absence is an absence. And so what I want to see is relationship between kids. We have a 10-day, of course, there are exclusions, there are unique situations, but I really just want to see the number of absences and how many pass or fail. I've always believed that attendance is paramount for an individual student's success. Obviously, there are unfortunate situations, but I just feel like from what the perception that I have received in my 2 years and 4 months is that some schools have some very serious attendance problems. Some kids are not even marked absent. That's scary when someone says that, which may go to your bathroom issue. I can tell you teachers that say kids come in late and wander the halls for 20 minutes, but I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But I've heard that from who I would believe to be a viable resource. I mean, if they're going to say it to me, I'm going to listen, but attendance is the beginning point.
So would it be lawful or unlawful attendance? So excused versus unexcused? Because a child, and the reason why I'm asking these questions, so a child could be in the hospital for 20 days.
But you won't have that many of those.
Perhaps, I don't know. Or it could be that they have reoccurring doctor's appointments.
Okay, and that can be answered, just absences and grade.
But are we
More than
talking
10, so
absences?
11 or more absences regardless of the reason, and then they're great.
I'm trying to help Julie.
Are we talking, go ahead, I'm
I
sorry.
was just going to give a bit of an answer. So when it comes to absences and then the correlation of grades, so one way to drill it down is our current attendance policy requires that if a student goes over the number of absences, the only way they pass that course is if the principal meets with the student and overrides it with some type of attendance or academic contract. So the question, I think, for high school principals is, how many of those did you choose to override? Because the default is that they are not going to pass because they missed too many days. So I think that might answer your question. We can show a correlation of, and all students are still taking courses, and so we have some things still going on. But we could show you the attendant or the chronic absentee rate or absence rate for each school, and then there could be some correlation made, probably not, in the time frame we need for this work session. But I think the quicker way to get the answer is, how many students did you meet with to override their absence for a passing grade?
I would like to see a printout of anyone with more than 10 absences on their final grade. And then we're not even going to discuss it, but I at least can, and maybe not only myself, might generate some questions for later.
Right,
And we've already said we're not going to take the time to discuss it, but we're handing it out.
But I mean, and also, I think Dr. Faust has a very valid point. Once again, I don't think we have it 45-minute discussion and we're done and that's it. We fixed every discipline problem in the world. I mean, there's nothing that says we can't come back either later in July, because we're probably going to have a meeting later in July if we have to, or maybe in August, and have a second workshop session, and maybe a third work session. I mean, to look at it, because I think that we talk about safety. We talked about safety the other night. Safety is a huge thing. Discipline's a huge thing. There's a lot of correlation between safety and discipline, and so we talked about it the other night at Ashley. And I think it is very important that we look at discipline, so that why, and connections, as Ms. Walker said, mental health, connections, these things that we support these students, and so that they do make better choices in the classroom, in the hallway, coming into the school, all the way around. Ms. Crable?
The point also too, we have overall missed a whole day attendance and we have missed a class attendance. And those are all, they all add up, so the list could be, it's a different list than what I think you're asking for. But I would hope that, to that point, are we inviting the principal of the year and perhaps the last year's principal of the year, so that, because
Yes, ma'am.
because they, I know Mr. Madden got a lot of details from a student perspective at the student summit, and so that, and I was sitting in that was very enlightening on the information he got, and he said he was going to share it. But let's use him from being the most recent, and maybe even the principal of the year from the year before that, because that's, well, Jay Corpening, was telling us that these things have arisen much more now that we've come back into school full-time from being out. So, using that expertise. I mean, if that, I don't even know who the person was before Mr. Madden, but.
That was Dr.
I'm not certain. That person may not be here anymore.
Yeah, I'm not
I don't know
sure.
who it is.
That was before my time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I had two questions. So for behavior, are you wanting a list? Like, what do you want? What's the board's will for behavior? If you're wanting a printout for, or did you say a printout for behavior?
Printout for attendance.
For attendance.
So I have an update on that. Dawn
Grades.
Brinson is
She's in
the computer. So she is sharing that because Power School sits inside technology. Power School is going to be down the first week of July. Every year it goes down to do the end of year closeout and beginning of year reboot. And they're all doing the end of year items this week. So that wouldn't be something that she would be able to have ready for the July 11th work session, just for consideration. And then secondly, with regard to a student behavior and discipline work session, I did create an outline based on conversations with a few of you, as this has been an ongoing discussion, if you want to hear that and see if it will meet
That makes sense.
your needs.
Absolutely.
Do you want me to do that?
Please.
So really, 4 main sections, and I'll run through kind of an overview, and then maybe that generates the dialogue. So number 1, our student population. So we have really kind of two camps of students when we talk about behavior and discipline. We have students who come to us with skills and they're ready for instruction. Those are most often the students that are in attendance. And then we have another group of students that come to us without skills. They need behavior instruction. And that could also correlate very closely with those who have attendance concerns. One thing we can do is pull up the district or the school level chronic absenteeism, which will help too. So part of that first part is, who do we teach, who don't we teach? Who needs that behavior instruction, who doesn't? Second part is blending in the instructional framework from Dr. Fason's work, because we have a blended instructional framework for academic and behavior structure. That's our preventive and proactive piece. That's what's built in policies. Policy 4302 is all about that and how each school creates their plan for that. That involves those guidelines for success that are mirrored between academic and behavior, which is engagement, high time on task, instructive responses, empathy, high expectations. And then we've got a research-based model called the STOIC model, which helps every teacher self-assess their classroom for those factors in place. And that's something that's commonly used across academics for that classroom engagement piece. And those would be what Ms. Barnhart talks about as the inputs. And then once that's done, the next phase we need to talk about is carrying out those disciplinary steps. That graduated response system, that matrix of expectations, and keeping in mind that the non-negotiables are safety threats, weapons, injury, and often refusal to be redirected. So when you've front-loaded with understanding our student population, building in that behavioral and academic combined approach, then you have to carry out disciplinary measures. The problem is when you don't build in that blend of academic and behavioral structure and you try to carry out discipline measures, it's kind of like disciplining a kid for not knowing how to multiply when they never had math instruction. So, but following that and understanding that there are non-negotiables in there, regardless. And then the fourth step of the outline that I have here is that analysis of results and continuous improvement. That's where principals need to be able to speak up, because they've had the interaction on our policies, they've given the input, they helped create the matrix and the graduated response system. This is where principals would be able to share their recommendations or thoughts on policy changes, or on the graduated response, or any needed changes in other ways with regard to the 4300 series. But they also have the opportunity to use this information to affect their own school plan for the management of student behavior that is policy 4302. I don't know if that helps or not.
Can I translate?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Well, I would just say that sounds like about 45 minutes to me.
That
sounds like more than
45. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it like this, and then you talk.
I mean, I'm just saying that's a good first step, and then maybe we can spend 5 minutes, like, figure another direction so we can go in. Dr. Faustin?
Dr. Bass?
I just want to translate. So what she's basically saying is that you're going to sit here and you're going to have this presented to you. Every year, you're going to sign off on the student's handbook. But if it isn't exercised in the school, we're just having a conversation. And so when you have individuals who say that students are walking the hallway, my response back to them is, what was the consequence? If student, and I'm not asking for a question, but, or like those individuals who aren't doing what they're supposed to do, are they following the protocol? Every school should have procedures. That's why when we talk specifically about those subjective discipline measures where it's like disrespect, and so it's like it may be disrespect, but it's not, that's what they're talking about, because there's not a protocol that will say, in our school, this is what this means. So I think this will be a great initiative, but I'm like you, it's.
Can we get this in 45 minutes? Because I'm thinking maybe we hold off on this until after the, after our board meeting and after the, all of the leadership is coming together with the leadership retreat, just, and to give them more time. This is a lot of information for them to process when they're just trying to get their schools back up and running. So, perhaps we do this after, that last week in July, before the August board meeting, have a longer, 45 minute, I mean, Julie's going to do most of the talking in that 45 minutes.
I don't want to.
No, I know you don't want to, but we have to understand what you're coming from. And then the principals are going to get like this much time, to, I don't want to say defend themselves, but to talk about that analysis piece. And then we're going to be all rushed, and then we have to shut down, we can't continue, off we go. So I just wanted to maybe throw that out for consideration of just postponing the much-needed discussion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McManus?
If I recall, all I want, we don't have to discuss it. I don't know why you want to extend it. It's a printout by high school of anyone with, regardless, we're not breaking it down. I applaud, respect, and you know how much I support how you disseminate all this stuff and somehow get it to us. That's for later. It's like your first diagram of a house. I'd just like to see the blueprint. I'd like to see, one more time, a printout of the attendance by high schools, 11 or more absences. That's it. We're not breaking it out into any special and or. That's all. And if we can't get it, which I certainly understand because of the update, then if they could include that in our next delivery to our door in our packet. That's all I want. We won't have to discuss it, but that should or may generate some questions. I don't know why that's dangerous. It's data. And the first time you and I ever met, we talked about data-driven. And I just want to see it.
Are you getting something delivered to your
That's
door?
all, please. But I guess I have to have 4 votes.
We're not. Are you getting something delivered to your door?
It makes me think about.
We get the courier.
No, we
We're
don't.
planning for the task force, is we are actually planning, what we're calling a fishbowl for the task force, where the principals will have set questions, and they're just going to answer those questions, and we will not be, we'll be listening and learning. So because it sounds like to me, I know the principals would love their voices to be heard. And if we bring these 10 principals in 45 minutes, and Julie's gonna take at least, I would say, 20 minutes to explain what she needs to, I just wanna make sure their voices can be heard, because I know that's what you want. So I just wanted to throw that out.
And let me ask, Ms. Varnum, do you think you could condense yours in 10 minutes so we could have?
Well, I
at least
have a
good
sticky note that says 7 to 10 minutes.
All right, so there you go. There you go. Well, and I think that, this, again, I think that we're getting very much into the concern about, we're not, as I said before, we're not going to solve the problems of discipline in a 45-minute period. It's just not going to happen. I wish we could, absolutely, but it's not going to happen. But I think this might be a good kickoff point. Definitely think we need to have multiple sessions I think Dr. Faust has already spoken to that, it's not going to be a one-time fix. Ms. Bradford, you said something?
Well, I would love to see, it's not yet July. I would love to see more than one meeting between now and when school starts so that we can possibly get our toe wet on discipline. I will second Mr. McManus's request. Now that he's thrown it out there, I'd like to see exactly what he's asked for too. So, but it doesn't have to take up a meeting, but it will possibly affect what happens at a later meeting. But there's so many aspects of this. We can't do it in one 45-minute session, but it's a start. But I'd like to go ahead and calendar the next meeting and the one after that.
Can I just request that we do that? We do it in August. Because
Yeah.
a lot of us will not be here. And I hate to schedule when downtime, and principals as well. I mean,
Maybe we can have, a work session at the August meeting. I'm just throwing out ideas now. Maybe we can have one there and then a special meeting there afterwards hopefully before the beginning of school, that we could have a second, maybe even lengthier, another 45-minute session and then maybe a couple-hour session, early August.
There's 5 Tuesdays in August.
There's 5 Tuesdays in August, which makes it so much easier. So, any other discussion about this meeting? If not, we'll go on to the regular board meeting. Do we need to have any motions on? I don't think we do at this point. We'll find out. We will let you know by the end of the week where the meeting will be held. Hopefully, it will be at Spencer, which I think would be great. I'd like to roll up our sleeves a little bit. Thank you for putting it together, Ms. Martin. Appreciate that. Again,
37 minutes.
I'm sorry.
This discussion was 37 minutes, so we're 37 minutes into our 2 hours.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's because somebody wanted me to get a copy of that, y'all just didn't find.
And Ms. Craybill, I'm hoping that maybe I didn't make a quick.
There was no times on any of this, so I don't know how to,
Well,
do
but I'm
my
saying,
timekeeping.
but if you would keep your time, like, let's say for this, I'm talking for the regular board meeting. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear, I
Sorry.
apologize.
Okay.
All right, we're starting.
Clock
And-
off.
Yeah, I apologize. My fault. Pete, be clearer. Yep, okay. Working for clarity, I'll be working on that. But anyway, so we'll start, again, if you see something that is listed, even something right now listed for 5 minutes, if you think it's going to take longer, please speak up, and that way there we can have a good idea. And Ms. Crable is going to keep up with that for us. Opening, call to order, roll call, approval of agenda, 5 minutes. Invocation, presentation of the colors. Who's going to do that, Ms. Bowie? Still working on that, okay. National anthem? Okay, working on that, thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, I asked Ms. Barnhart to do that, so we're going to put Ms. Barnhart in that. Roll. Recognitions, we have 10 minutes.
That's right.
That'll be good. Administrative introductions.
And you'll have the ones we approved today and the ones from last month. I'm bringing them all together on the 11th.
Okay, and are they going to speak? So do we need to give them a little more time?
Just what they've done, which is hi. You guys say hi to them. They say we're happy to be here, and I can do it in 10.
Okay. All right.
So is there a reason that we have two, like on screen, we only have one, but on this, we have two? Did we took that out? The second administrative, okay.
Let's do that one. July recognitions.
Yeah, 5 minutes total for the only two. So.
Okay, there's only 2 of those for 5 minutes. So, but are we going to get everything done in 10 minutes?
We only need 5. Can you do 5?
No.
I probably need 10.
Okay, so let's say 15 then. Change that to 15. Thank you. I appreciate that. Approval of minutes. Hopefully will be about 5 minutes. Anybody have any student voice?
They haven't indicated a report for July.
Okay. So should we take it off or should we leave it and then just delete it?
I would leave it.
Just leave it.
Just leave it? Okay, we'll leave
I
it.
thought that they said that they would be prepared to talk with us later in the summer, so I don't know that they're going to have, I mean, you may know more, Malcolm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they just haven't indicated yet, so we could just leave
Okay.
it.
Let's leave it on, okay. Superintendent's report, 5 minutes. I'll be done quickly in 5 minutes. Call the audience, 60, we can't do it, that'll be there. Closed session, we probably will not need a closed session on that.
I'd like to suggest that if we have to have it, if we either put it in the beginning or at the end and not in the middle of the meeting, we're kind of reverting back to what we used to do. And if it's at the end, at least we've gotten through new business before we do that, and we're not as exhausted.
Okay, so let's take that closed session out there, unless there's a reason.
Yeah, when we looked at this morning, there was a personnel report in there. So are they now just combined? Both reports are combined into one? Because I don't see an attachment here now.
We currently bring the personnel agenda, now we bring it at the
end of this meeting.
Right, okay, so we just took that one that was on here before that only had 4 people on it.
No, yeah, it's 3 or 4 pages.
There was 2.
It should possibly be in the agenda review in the other board. So you probably have 2 lines. If you go in assembly, there's the one for today, and it should be in that one.
Okay, I saw 2, okay, then, but I would suggest we leave it in for other things that may come up, like if anybody has any questions about the book review, that is in here, the new business, I think we should leave that in case we have questions.
He's going to actually discuss that today in our closed session.
Okay,
Mr. Weber is.
people still may have questions after we get this, but,
And board members, if I may, I don't know if you can hear me. I think one reason this is here, there used to be a parens that said if needed, and so it was just a placeholder on your regular monthly meeting agenda in the event that there's something that comes up between your agenda review. And I know there's 2 on this agenda, one at the beginning and one at the end. So you could just put if needed after that first one. You certainly have discretion to move it around, whether you want it at the beginning of the meeting or after the information items or at the end. That's up to you. But I think the reason there's a closed session on your regular meeting agenda is just as a placeholder.
Okay, well, I have no problem leaving it there, so let's just leave it there. But let's please add the
If needed.
if needed in there. Okay, information, E-Academy. Any questions about that?
That is my item. If I can give you guys an overview now, I don't think it's gonna be I don't think any of the items that I have will be a lot of time. It's gonna be what questions you have, but I don't know if it's okay to kind of give you guys an overview now. Okay. All right, so basically the items that I am bringing are basically things we want to make you aware of as a board. And one of them, this one is E-Academy. Currently our E-Academy is housed at Mosley. We will be changing where it is housed and housing it with the child's homeschool. So if Patrice goes to Harvard, she will be receiving her orientation and picking up her device and any support she needs for E-Academy at Harvard instead of going to Mosley. What that does is it makes it so the kids are more connected to the school. There is no connection when we just do them in a computer and say E-Academy is now the place. Also, we want to change the name from E-Academy to full-time virtual because we really don't, to have an academy, you have to have certain positions according to the state. Okay, so those are the 2 major things. One thing that will stay the same is the application process, the rubric process. We need to make sure that that is consistent, so it will be done the same with the district personnel. But once it gets to the point where the student is accepted, they will be supported by their home school, is what we will be doing. We feel like this will really stop that disconnect that the student now really doesn't have that sense of belonging.
Questions? Ms. Walker?
So does the board have to approve the change of the name, or does it really
No, because we
matter?
really don't have an E-Academy now because it's not a school.
Okay.
Because the state, we don't have the positions.
Okay.
So, we just thought we'd do that because that's truly what it is. Because with an E-Academy, there are certain positions that I have in here, like a media specialist, someone on site to support full-time technologists, like 5 positions you have to have for the state that we currently do not have.
Okay.
What's the makeup of the group now as far as the high schools?
We have
If I may
38 E-Academy students at the high school.
And they're divided equally close among the 4 high schools?
Yeah, about pretty similar.
It just,
Yeah.
in the,
I will say that, but I don't have that breakdown.
But all high schools are represented.
But all high schools are definitely represented.
May I just suggest for perception, as we try to make sure that all the high schools, perception-wise and reality-wise, are treated equally, that we might want to rotate that among the 4 high schools, so it's not just one high school? 'Cause
They're
that's-
gonna do their high school. So if you're at Hoggart, you'll do Hoggart. If I'm at New Hanover, I'll do New
It'll
Hanover.
all be virtual, that's why we're changing. So that
Yeah, so
we
that, yeah,
ever
we'll
any
be-
more at all? Okay, that's all.
Yeah, because it's
But that
simple
is-
right now, they're not connected to a school, and we really see the disconnect.
Ms. Crable?
So before we go any further, it's my understanding that information we're going to get at the regular board meeting, and that consensus items, we're going to go, yes, we approve them all. So are we only supposed to go through consensus items so we can ask those questions? Because we're going to hear these presentations again. So should we go through all the information now?
Well, I think maybe that we are, my interpretation of this is that she's giving us the information now so that we can ask questions now. And then she's going to give the information again. Yes, we'll hear it a second time, but then the general public will hear it because a lot more people watch that than probably watch this. But we won't have to ask a lot of questions. You know, she may be able to
That makes sense.
answer some of our questions in her presentation.
That's what I was thinking, but I can do it
No,
whatever way, because
I misunderstood.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Barnhart?
And mine kind of tags along with Mr. McManus. I was wondering the demographics of this, how many we serve, and then the success rates of those students. So it's my understanding it's 6th through 12th grade?
6th
And
through
so
12th grade.
The total.
53, 6th through 12th graders.
Okay, so then the total that we're serving and their success rates
I will
with
have
that.
that for you.
That's wonderful, thank you.
Okay, anything else on that one? If not, let me go ahead and jump back to our time. So for A through F, are they all yours?
Pretty much.
All of them but B.
He is me.
B is you. Okay, so how much time would you, if
It
we ask most of the
depends-
questions now?
If
10.
If you guys are okay with it, if I can just give you what I'm thinking so I'll know. So like E Academy, 3 to 5 minutes now because you already know the information. I'll have that for you. I just don't know what questions you're gonna have. So, I mean, I don't have to do the whole spiel because I really don't have a presentation. These are small, but I don't know what questions you're gonna have. So if I can just give you the I won't go, I'll just be very brief right now. And then you ask questions and I can tell you what, from your questions, I'll know. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so why don't you carry on with, or why don't Dr. Barnes carry on with the beginning teacher support plan, please, sir.
This is not necessarily a rubber stamp, but every year we bring for you the beginning teacher support plan for you to understand what work we do. Every 3 years, we get evaluated by the state in our beginning teacher support plan to make sure it meets the requirements. It's mostly just to let you know the work we're doing with beginning teachers year 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, very good, thank you. Standardizing.
How long is that going to be, you said?
Do you have a question? Sorry.
5 minutes? How long?
Yeah, I can do it in 5.
5 minutes, okay.
Name that tune.
I can name that tune in 3 minutes.
I can do it in 2, no.
We're counting on you, no.
Mr. Chair, are we anticipating any questions for Dr. Barnes? Because, I mean, I read most of it.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
I mean, do you want to do that now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it now, and then that would, you can, I think it's better if you can address it then, too.
Yeah.
Just since we are live streamed, this is an open meeting.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Could we not approve some of these things now?
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
say that was approved in
That's
our
what I
open
mean.
meeting, agenda
That's-
meeting, and that would
Yes.
It would help me because I can tell
trim down a lot of this just
I
being
can tell
mentioned.
the schools that they could go ahead and, we had to hold
Well, you
everything
could
into July
underline
the
or approve
11th.
at the agenda meeting on so-and-so, so-and-so, and you wouldn't have to bring them
Great
up.
idea.
Yeah, it would help us
Those
at
are
the
there.
school level.
Maybe Jason can weigh in on this, but these are information items, and if you look on the right-hand side, it says for information only. We are technically not supposed to be voting on information-only items. And in order for us to really understand, if there's any documents to look at, there's only 2 documents for us to look at right now.
I don't have any
I know,
documents.
and I'm not faulting on any of that.
Okay,
But
but
it's,
there will be no documents.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This is, and I'm really not asking for approval. I don't want to, we don't want to do these things without the board knowing.
Right.
So it's basically for your information.
Right.
So we don't want to move and you guys are hearing in the grapevine, oh, this is what they're doing. We want you to be aware of this, but I don't have, there will be a presentation for Zello, But everything else is just for your information and make sure you're aware before others are.
So
So we don't really need to vote on it because there's no
Jason's
voting to
on.
be had? Whoever
Right, and
has-
board members, I'm happy to weigh in. I mean, as I understand it, these are information items, not action items. I will say from an open meetings law perspective, the different titles and the way, many local boards of education organize their meetings, from an open meetings law perspective, you can call things information items, you can call them action items, and that's really at your discretion. What it's titled and what category it falls in does not prevent you from taking action or moving things around. In terms of open meetings law compliance, you would want to make sure that the notice that goes along with these meetings in particular, it's my understanding that these agenda review meetings are posted as special called meetings with at least 48 hours notice. And under the open meetings law, with a special called meeting, the board can only discuss and take action on items that are listed on the notice. So that would be the only consideration if you do decide moving forward with these agenda review meetings that some items may or may not be up for action, to make sure that it's clear in the agenda itself.
All right, thank you. Well, I think Dr. Faison has told us that that this is, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I wanted to go and finish talking.
I was going to say that these are informational items, so we don't need to vote on them anyway. But go ahead. I'm
I
sorry,
was
Ms.
going to say
Walker.
to Dr. Faison's point, there's nothing to be approved, so hopefully you can still be doing what you need to do, right? If you're just giving it for information, you're
Yeah,
not
but
waiting on us to necessarily know it.
Yes, but there are things that I would not want to not share with you and share with others before you know. So it's not that they need to be approved, but I don't want you to hear them from, that's just not the way,
Okay. I will hold the rest of our questions to let Dr. Faison kind of run through this, and then we'll ask any
Okay, and
questions.
I promise I will be brief unless you have questions. The second one is standardizing the instructional day. We will be standardizing the instructional day for our elementary schools. We have elementary schools that go different times. We have schools that go shorter amount of times than others. And so we will be standardizing that day. So in New Hanover, if you have a child that goes to school in elementary, no matter whether you move in this district or this district, this is the time for elementary school. That will require us to make a little minor adjustment in times, about 15 minutes, where that's going to also address that issue we had before with the recess and does it count. We won't have to worry about any of that, because with doing this, our schools now will go all of them for 6 hours and 55 minutes. So that is a clear 30 minutes for kids to have that recess they need, 25 minutes to have the lunch that is required by law, and full 6 hours of instruction. We do not anticipate this being a burden on families at all, because with the minimum time, we're talking about 15 minutes for most. We will do more in the morning and maybe about 5 in the afternoon. So it will be a slight change, but it will be consistent, because our elementary schools now, I don't know the rhyme or reason why they start, but we don't have a structure or alignment in all of our elementary schools.
Any questions, Ms. Barnhart?
We're too
Ms. Walker?
close. Do we have alignment with our middle schools and our high schools at this time?
Our middle school and high schools, yes, mostly we have some alignment. We do have a tad bit of Holly Shelter is a little bit later because of busing, but they go basically the same amount of time, and they are over 7 hours a day. Well, we have some elementary schools who are going discrepancy of about 15 minutes.
And honestly, busing was what I was thinking about, and I asked Mr. Anderson to talk to me about some details, but if we stagger the start time, I don't know if that will help with transportation at all, and that's why I'm asking.
That's why we're going. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
We've been working with Dr. Faison on this, and that's one of the reasons we put 10 minutes in the morning, because that widens that gap between our elementary routes and secondary routes.
I like to hear
and
that.
the 5 minutes in the afternoon. that shortens it a little bit, but we're focused on getting them to school on time. Yeah, if we have to be late one place or the other, I'd rather be late in the afternoon. I'm not saying we're going to be late, but I got to get them to school.
Ms. Walker?
So I guess my follow-up question is, I, as a calendar committee person, I did look at all the different start times, and there were different start times for some schools. Maybe it was transportation, maybe it was student population, or where they were located. You know, Holly Shelter's way up there.
The country.
Yeah, in the country. That's right. Last country left.
Myself, okay.
So are we saying that we're going to start all elementaries at, let's say, what, 7:45? Is that the time?
Well, we haven't said the time per se. Probably would be around 7:40. Right now, they're 7:50 for the majority. When you look at them, we only have about 5 elementaries that are different than everybody else. So we're bringing those in line with everybody else. These sides are year-round. Our year-round will stay because if you remember our year-round, as you do with the calendar man, they go to school more days than the other schools. So their day is a tad bit shorter, but they go 7 more days. So they're definitely fine. The other schools, it's just kind of bringing them in line. And actually, Castle Hayne is already in line with everybody too, and they're way out there because we're only talking elementary schools. So this will make everybody on the same page.
I just have one follow-up, Mr. Chair. So I think I had heard also that teachers get there at a certain time. Is that going to affect when they have to arrive at school? Because of the busing situation, like you might need that little bit of extra time, I guess, before the bell rings.
So Dr. Barnes and I have looked at it. Teachers, we are working that teachers, and I think he's spoken with you guys before, that we have teachers who are doing different times, and we're putting that in line. This will not change that amount of when teachers get there, because we do have some schools, for whatever reason, teachers have to be there 25, 30 minutes ahead of the students. They don't have to change for this to work. They're going to make sure, what is the time for all teachers, or is not going to be more than?
The times range from 7.5 hours a day for teachers to 8. And so we're working to try to keep it within those times.
Yeah, it will not be anything different. So I think Mr. Anderson said that the buses might drop off now 10 minutes earlier. So
We drop off as early as 7:15 at some schools, and where that's occurring, not all the teachers have to be there. They rotate staff, so that the students are supervised and someone's there to receive the students.
So do they like be in a cafeteria or something like that before teachers get there?
Yeah, it could be.
And we work with the executive directors, and they're working with the principals to make sure, because we do not, the teachers' time should not be over what HR is speaking of.
Ms. Crable?
I'm sure we've looked at this, but we've all heard about what happened in Pender County when they were changing their times, and it looked like they didn't have enough hours and minutes. So have we looked at that to make sure that's okay?
That's exactly, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Craybill. That's exactly why we're doing the set standardized time and the 15 minutes, because we won't have that issue. We are, with this issue, we will now have it, so we don't have to worry about that recess thing that we talked about earlier. We have the law abiding by for the 25 minutes for lunch, and we still will have just this little 15 minutes. We'll allow it, so if we miss a day like we did this year, we're okay. We don't have to make it up.
Okay. Any other questions on standardizing the instructional day for elementary schools?
5 minutes?
5 minutes now, see?
And the pre-K district data presentation?
This Mrs. Smiles is required to present that to you. I think she can do it in 7 minutes and take your questions, so I'll say 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Because she does have to
15.
provide this. You said
15.
Oh, 15.
15?
Oh, see? She said 15.
I'd rather have 15 at this meeting than, exactly.
Okay.
And then finally, International School at Gregory.
Another quick one, I do believe. So with the International School of Gregory, there's 2 things I want to share with you. One is the electives that they currently have. They are currently, we're doing some things with Williston, which is not as, it's not working as smooth as we want it to be. So anyway, we are for this year going to continue to allow the 7th and the 8th graders who are currently there that we promised that they will still be allowed to go to Williston to take band and chorus if they want. Starting with the 6th graders and on, they will be taking their electives at the emergent school, which allows them to truly gain some more Spanish immersion. In the middle school, that's when they get the Spanish. So by not doing that, that is also not helping them with the language acquisition. So let me just repeat that. The 7th and 8th graders, we will continue to do what we promised them. They will be able, for these 2 years, to do their band and chorus at Williston. The 6th graders, we are going to do the language acquisition and focus on that and do their electives at Gregory. We will give those parents an option, of course, because we're changing now. So those parents will have an option. It's only fair. But, they also, this year, for some reason prior to this year, they were not receiving the credit for the Spanish. So, you know, the state has credit by mastery. So the students actually take take the Apple test, and that's a language test. And when they score, if they score, all of them mostly score at least to get Spanish 1. They were not being placed in Spanish 1, but they were not receiving that high school credit as they should have been according to policy 3420. So we are making sure that they're getting that credit now. And some of them also will get the credit for Spanish 2, but it is based on where they perform on that test. So we are trying to make sure we enhance the middle school Spanish acquisition, and this is the best way to do that, is what we've been told. The second part is, and this is down the road, we are asking and doing some research on what does our Spanish immersion or language acquisition school need to look like for middle school. Are we really giving them what they need? Currently, the only Spanish they get in the middle school from 6 through 8 is when they take global studies or connections, which are 2 electives, or 8th grade Spanish. So they're 50-50 in elementary, but then they come to middle school and they only get it maybe once a day. So we're looking at that, and we have a system to kind of do some research and look at what should we do, and if anything, and then we would be coming back to you and sharing that idea and getting your approval if we need to make some changes.
Questions, board members?
I do have a question. So I want to reiterate, this is not we are trying to stop the immersion program, but we're trying to enhance it to be that consistent 50-50 that they see in elementary school, that we see that's not consistently happening in middle school.
Yes.
Okay,
And
thank you
I
for
will
that
also
clarification.
say, we are also looking at some data, and I hope to have it for you when I share, and it just, that we're finding when you do things like this, student achievement for these students also enhances. So we are definitely not saying anything like getting rid of the program. We're talking about taking it to another level and enhancing it to make sure our students are getting the same type of language acquisition that some of the students across the other states, across the state is.
Great. Any other questions?
All right.
Ms. Walker?
No, I was just curious.
Ms. Walker is keeping me on time. 3 minutes, Ms. Walker.
Sure, writing it down.
So 5 minutes.
I'm catching it.
You got it all?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
you got it all? And finally, Zillow.
Zillow, they were going to give a 5 to 7 minute presentation and then your questions, and that will be a collaboration. You know, we have been working on it, student support, technology, and curriculum. So that would actually be Dr. Edge and DeMarcus, and they will be presenting that information to you. They have about a 7 minute presentation and whatever questions you may have. So I would say, depends on how many questions you think you will have.
Well, I'd say 10, at least 10. Yes, sir?
Will they be able to show, so just to give you some background knowledge on Zillow. So Zillow will afford the students to sit down, they can take it's an assessment, and then it'll direct them into what career path, like these are things that you would fall under your career path in the event that, you know, you're in high school, and actually it goes all the way down to elementary. I was talking with Dawn and Power School, and we're trying to get it so that when you are doing course selection at the middle and the high school, that the parent and the student can sit side by side and they can pull and look at the classes and say, okay, you're in this class, you're going to be in this class. Because what happens if you have students in, I'll say in the high schools, because I know that works, you don't always get to see the course selection. This is what I'm taking, I need you to sign off on it, but there's no clarity. So what we hope to happen is, and I'm adding this, Dawn, so I know Power School will be down in a couple weeks, so you don't have to worry about it, that there's a description. So let's say if it's, I don't know, Marketing 1, what marketing, that just a brief description of what Marketing 1 would be. So parents, students can see what that would look like in there.
Yeah, and thank you, sir.
But it does a
And
lot.
One other thing, and Dr. Faust made me think about, because we've talked so much about this, is we're actually trying to provide you a demo account so you can play with it. So I don't know if you'll get it before we present or after. Mr. Nixon is working on that. And like Dr. Faust said, the career development plan is actually something, and I think Ms. Bradford, he shared that in our meeting. It is in the House right now to be part of what our students have to do in 7th and 10th grade, I want to say. So we're already doing that in CTE.
Great.
Now what we're going to do is do it across our district for all of our students, because they can look at Zello, get this interest, and actually tailor their development plan to that. And the parents can actually see, you're going to see that the parents can see where they are towards graduation progress as well. So like I said, we hope to send you a demo account shortly. He's working on that. We'll answer questions for that, but we'll definitely share it with you. And parents will work at each open house. They will be there to give parents just an overview and then lead them to the Parent Academy that will be digging into it more to educate parents about that.
Ms. Bradford?
It's not a question for that, but if Dr. Faison has presented the E-Academy, the pre-K, and the International at Gregory.
Not pre-K.
So is there
Yeah.
any reason why those three don't come off our agenda for the full meeting? That would save a full 15 minutes in the full meeting. As Mr. McManus pointed out, we've heard her presentation. We don't have to vote. No disrespect to you, Dr.
Oh,
Faison.
I am so fine,
I'm
Ms.
just looking for
Bradford.
15
I am so fine.
So is there any reason why we can't do that based on what Mr. Weber said? I believe we can.
Mr. Craybill?
Well, I respectfully disagree with that, and maybe Jason can come back on and correct me, is that, like Mr. Wildeboer said, we didn't notice it that way, and most people are not watching this meeting. They're waiting for the regular meeting, including, principals or teachers that, are crazy enough to actually be paying attention, but on their summer break. But I would say, I'm not in favor of taking anything off of the agenda that you've proposed, because we've heard a prelude to it here.
Well, I just wanted to offer a point of clarification. The pre-K district data, when I'm the liaison with Ms. Smiles, we're trying to get a parent to come and present that too. So it's really empowering and incorporating, because the Head Start board is made up of parents. And so I would not want to see that come off, because I know that's something that she's been prepping with the group to make sure that we have that opportunity for a parent to come and highlight some of the great things that are going on. So.
Okay, Mr. Weber, can you speak to that real quickly?
Oh, sure. I mean, in terms of adding items, again, I would be cautious about doing that from an open meetings law perspective. In terms of taking action, I mean, that's one of the reasons why your agenda review meeting agendas now include an item for personnel in the event that there's action that the board needs to take after the closed session that happens during your agenda review meetings. And again, it's just to ensure compliance with the open meetings law. So I think moving forward, if the board wants to consider a change to its agenda review meeting practices, where you would allow yourselves the opportunity to take action. For example, if a staff member has something that can't wait until the regular board meeting that they would want approval of during the agenda review meeting, then for those future meetings, you could just have that clearly identified on the agenda review agenda itself. Like what we're looking at, or what I can see right now on the screen, is your proposed agenda for July. But if you go back to your agenda for today, that's where you would want to have clarity on any items that would be proposed for action. And in terms of removing items, that's certainly something that the board can consider during the regular meeting itself. Any board member prior to the agenda being adopted can make a motion to remove items or to add items. And if it's prior to adoption, that just requires a majority vote. During the meeting itself, members can make motions to table or motions to postpone. Those are certainly options as well.
Okay.
That's kind of what I brought up, to put it on here somewhere.
So I would agree, because I think if we're trying to cut time out, questions now, presentations then, and then it goes by a lot quicker. I mean, this is not just for us, it's for the public as well.
Well, one option we could consider is any business we don't get to when the 2 hours is run out, that we just move it to the following meeting, and we could just move it to the following meeting, move to the following meeting if we can't figure out a way to take this, which is not 2 hours, and consolidate it in any way, shape, or form.
Ms. Crable, do you have all your numbers for that?
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to make sure you didn't miss
I
anything.
have 5 minutes for A, 5 minutes for B, 5 minutes for C, 15 minutes for D, 5 minutes for E, and 10 minutes for F.
Perfect, okay, we'll carry on. Next is consensus items. We have 5 minutes. Does anybody take a moment to look through that list? I'm sure you already looked at it, but is there anything that you may need to pull off or discuss? Ms. Mason?
I'm going to need to pull off today, because that's my other job at Skyline Community College.
Okay. Okay, that shouldn't add too much time to work, I think. Is there anything else?
I have to pull off what's the letter? The communities and schools with Port City United, so that would be letter R. I think. Is it R?
Yes, it's R.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have pulled it. But again, we're not going to add, it's not for discussion, we're just pulling off because you two can't vote on those, correct?
Yes, but I have a question, if I might.
Please.
There are a number of items in the MOU, in the consensus items, that do not have attachments. So I can't ask any questions about them. So we're going to have to pull off, unless they get posted between now, and it's not just.
Posting now.
Okay.
We'll just open it back.
So,
I got mine back from the county.
but it's kind of hard for us to sit here and read what's being posted now, and then not have any questions for it.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we look at the consensus item? We have 5 minutes allotted. Why don't we say 15? And if we need to, because we are going to have to make 2 motions at least, if there are questions, then we can pull something off and go from there. Okay. So let's say 15 for that, unless somebody sees a reason.
Yes. I have a couple I can ask questions on now that I was able to read on. So for Mr. Anderson, the athletic maintenance for the fields, again, my same question there was, we checked the box version 3, interaction with students. Is that because we could be doing maintenance when students are out there, or we could be putting pesticide out when the students are there?
They could be doing maintenance when students are in school, but they will not be interacting.
Okay, so interaction just means while students are in session? Okay, so I won't ask that question anymore. Okay.
And the 2 versions, the 2 versions are very similar. Actually, version 3 is more stringent.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so for letter D, the consideration of change order for Ashley High School track renovations. I was trying to look for a timeline and wondering if this phase 2 or continuation is going to affect football and soccer seasons for this fall coming up.
It doesn't. The 2 change orders that I have on the agenda, they are change orders because it was funded in 2 fiscal years. So we bid the project knowing that in phases, knowing that we would receive funding in the upcoming fiscal year. And so we'll be adding phase 2 and it will not add any time.
Okay, but it won't affect our seasons, our fall seasons?
It will not affect the fall season.
Like they won't have to play
We're
somewhere
gonna
else?
be-
Okay.
The original schedule stands.
Okay.
It was bid that way.
Ms. Barnhart?
I mean, I just want to, it did affect, though, it affected our lacrosse team, because they went into extras, so it did affect our teams, Ms. Crable, just not the teams that you mentioned.
No, it did affect this past season.
Right.
It did affect some of those when they went further into the playoffs.
That's right.
No, and I understood that part. I'm looking ahead. So for item number E, letter E, sorry, there's not a number. For the vestibule, when I was looking down there and I saw vinyl flooring, does that replace the lobby carpet?
We're actually looking at.
Because that carpet's kind of gross.
It is.
Sorry.
It does replace in the current contract, they're replacing the vinyl in the lobby. We're looking at replacing it throughout the corridors.
Okay, like the high traffic, I mean, we got like little kids coming in there, like spilling stuff everywhere. Okay, thank you.
I did have a question. I mean, it's just a, because I'm curious question. The easement for Duke, are we going to have electric buses eventually, or is that?
We are still waiting on those.
Okay.
Yeah, this easement allows Duke to proceed with the installation of the charging station. And, I don't want to give you a time frame on when those buses are going to be here, because every time I do, it gets delayed. But we actually spoke with the vendor, and they assured me that they are coming. We have two. One is through the VW settlement that the state is handling, and another through the EPA Clean Bus program. And so those are the two buses. We're going to be putting one on the central lot. We've got a charging station going in there and one on the northern lot. And then we're on the waiting list for 3 additional buses.
Okay, awesome. I was just curious. So. Thank you for answering.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Craven?
Okay, so the letter F for the contracts, first of all, thank you for those contracts are like hard to read, but I was glancing through for a couple different things. The questions I had was, do we request the Buy American Produce option
I do not
versus the foreign food?
I don't know. I'll find out for you.
Okay. And then do we have any buy local options in there? Or is that kind of what the farms to school delivery is?
Right, that's a separate contract, and,
Okay.
and we do have an emphasis on buying local fruits and vegetables.
Okay, because it is mentioned in this contract, but we do a separate one for that? Okay.
Separate program.
And then and I was reading that there are costs associated with the farm to school, which we know anything that's good for us always costs more. Is it a substantial amount that, to our budget to do the farm to school? I mean, I wouldn't want to get rid of it.
It's not, because
Okay.
I can tell you, if it was, we'd be bringing it before the board if it was over $300,000.
Okay.
So it's not, but I could get you that dollar amount.
Yeah, it's not key. I was just wondering how much it cost us, because, we had such a struggle with recycling that, because recycling costs so much extra, so we've not done, it took us a long time to get recycling in our schools.
All right, anything else on that? Ms. Craybill?
H. So board field trips, is the 5th grade Sea Scholars Program the Masonboro field trip?
No, when we actually looked at it, we were surprised that the Masonboro field trip is not a board field trip, because we were always assuming that, and that's one they love, but it is not.
It's just not a board.
It is not.
Okay, so if it's not required, then who pays for, then the Masonboro pays for it all? Masonboro.org? Or does the school PTA or
they
school have
collect
to pay
money
for
for
it?
that.
And the schools pay
Yeah,
for it.
it is one they enjoy, and I was on the same page as you. We all were. We were thinking it was a board field trip for some time, but doing some investigating, these are the board field trips.
But is that something we can discuss and make it a board field trip?
I
At
would
some
ask
point?
it- Well, as far as the board field trips, each year I'm required to bring to you the board field trips. You can do whatever. I would actually say to you, I think they would enjoy if you discuss that, because that's a field trip they enjoy. But we would need to remove something, because what the principals have been informed of, with our field trips, we ask that they choose a board field trip and then a field trip of their choice, if it's not directly related to that content. I'm not talking about chorus and all those type of things. So they would love for that to be a board field trip. I'm going to speak for them from what I've heard.
So you're saying the only way to add it would be to subtract something?
Fifth grade one is
That's
Cameron
what
Art
we
Museum.
suggest, because right now we have one for every grade level. So if you add it, you would be adding 2 to 5th grade.
So, could we consider that for next year? And the only reason I say that is that we've already had our budgets approved, and schools normally pay for that, and this is a district-wide event. So, in transportation, we would have to budget for that, and we haven't.
So perhaps we should approve these before we approve our budget.
Yeah, that's a
Is that
good
what I'm
point.
hearing?
I can bring them in at earlier, and just FYI, we checked, we pay about $60,000 for the board approved field trips. Transportation does.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so I'll bring
I'll remember that for next year.
pre-budget next year.
Yeah, and will
2024.
you look at the Masonburg thing and figure out what we'd have to do to add that?
Sure,
Love
sure,
that.
I'll work with Ashley, because I know that involves water and boating and some things, so we'll work together.
They
and
have
bring that-
insurance, we
Yeah.
work all that.
Yeah.
Does that- Okay, so
Insurance,
yeah,
great.
I think that's a good compromise, thank you.
Very good.
So we don't have any board middle school field trips?
No, and the history behind board field trips, I'm just hearing, I'm talking to my colleagues, and I think maybe about, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 years ago, I'm looking at Julie, that the board established board field trips, and I want to say these have been the board field trips for quite some time now.
No, I'm not
Oh, okay,
disputing that, I know that. But I was just wondering, how do we, just because we've always done it, that
Right.
doesn't mean that's what we want to keep doing.
Yeah.
So are there other things in our curriculum that we're trying to enhance, at elementary and middle, that we could put into, respectfully, next year, since we've already got our budget approved? But that would be one thing that I would like for us to look at, our curriculum, and see where we might
Yeah, there
send
are
these
some
kids.
things that we do as a grade level. The one thing that I would say is when we put it here, you take away some of the flexibility of the schools, because we ask them to keep field trips to a minimum. So to increase, not to say that we can't, because there is a field trip in 10th grade that everyone, we do with the Holocaust, I think it is, with the Holocaust. So that would be a natural fit. So there are some places that would be a natural fit. So we can definitely look at that and
Maybe
and
ask
bring
our
something.
principal to.
Yeah, and we'll bring something, I can bring some proposals to you.
Good. We're going to carry on at this point. Let's go on to the policy.
I have I.
Did you have one more?
We're supposed to be asking questions now,
Okay,
so
yeah, go ahead.
I'm asking them all.
Ask
Not for every single one of them.
If you have questions, you can.
Okay, well, obviously.
Okay. Or I can wait and ask them at the
No,
meeting
go
on the
ahead.
11th.
Well, do that too.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this one is, I read through them all and noticed that all of the meetings are after school, right after school, and which I know to be true because I've been on school improvement teams, many times.
Which letter are you on?
I is
Aye.
school improvement team meeting attestations. So, good, we're having them, but the law also says that we have to meet at a time that is mutually agreeable for some parents, and I have heard and continue to hear that some schools do not have any parents at all, and some of it's because they can't get there at 3 o'clock or at 4 o'clock. So when I was on school improvement teams, we rotated times so that, and I know it's not convenient for all of the teachers, to do that, but either some schools I noticed have a before school meeting, like Mary C. Williams did a couple at 7:30 in the morning before their parents went to work, but I didn't see any in the evenings. So I'm just, attestations are fine, they're doing it, I'm not disputing that. I just want to bring that up as a comment, that we might be excluding some parents that we might need on our school improvement teams if we only have them as a staff meeting.
And I will definitely check into that. I can tell you the practice is normally when you identify the people on your team, you together decide when is the best time for the people on the team to meet. for those meetings. So I can definitely check on that and see if there's a particular school, if you want to just kind of share with me, because the goal is to make sure every parent who wants to be a part can be a part. Okay? Good point.
Thank
And Mr. Wildebohr, I recall in policy, I think when you were still chairperson, Ms. Crable, that we updated our policy for school improvement teams, crossing out requiring 5 parents to be attempting to provide parents, because that feedback was parents, did not matter when the time involvement was, it was a big issue to have 5 named parents at every single school. So that was struck with still the attempt of wanting parents involved. So I don't think that, based on people's different schedules, but I think what Dr. Faison is saying is correct, is saying the people who are then identified, they try to work with different time allotments. And I think some do meet later than right after school, but
They don't, if you read them, they all are at 3 or at 4.
3 or 4
Well, because middle and high school don't get out until then.
till later. Okay.
And like I said, if there is an issue and we can, definitely, but normally as a committee, you decide on that. That's probably the normal time that the school suggests, and the parents who are coming probably are accommodating. I don't know, but if there is something in particular or a school in particular, please let me know, because the goal is to make sure that parents who want to be a part can be a part.
And Dr. Faison, if I could ask a question back from my days as a principal, I remember we had a couple times with school improvement teams where if we didn't have a parent there, it becomes a leadership team meeting. Is that
Yes.
still?
Right, yes,
So, yeah,
exactly.
you have to have at least one parent
Yes,
there or else.
exactly,
it doesn't-
exactly.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, very good.
I'm done. The only other ones are the ones that weren't posted.
I was looking, I'm
So I'll
sorry.
read those. Thank you.
All right, policy consensus, we have 5 minutes. Does anyone need to pull anything off of that, or is there, now's the time to speak, or forever hold your peace? Okay, good. We will leave it at 5 minutes. New business, the book review appeal process. Again, that is discussing what we're going to do. That is not actually it's not going to be like a hearing at that point. If the board will decide whether, and Mr. Weber, if you'll just give me a thumbs up on this if I am correct, we have an option not to hear it. We have an option to hear it, and only on a review of the documentation, or we have an option to hear it and legal counsel and myself or the whole board can decide whether we hear every single witness that possibly wants to speak, or we allow the parent, and I guess it would be Dawn Brinson. Ms. Brinson would represent the school system, and those two are the only ones heard, would not be happening on this night. So just want to make sure everybody's clear of that. This is not what we're talking about. There was some discussion before about when there was discussion on whether we should have a book review committee. We already have a committee, or we already have a policy in place. That's what this is discussing, but we're at the point where we have to make that decision. But again, that we're not making a decision today, we're making a decision on the 11th.
So we're discussing the process for appeal of the decision.
We're discussing what the board as a whole wants to do, whether they want to, the 3 options, and again, I'll let Mr. Weber speak in, or join us in a second, but the 3 options I understand by reading the process. One option is to deny, and it would just go back to the district level. The second option at that point would be, or the second option would be to have a hearing on the documentation only without having any people heard. And the third option would be to have a hearing of whatever sort we decide. So.
And that's right, and I'm happy to weigh in.
Please.
Your applicable policy here, it's policy 3210. It's a bit of a choose-your-own-adventure model here. According to the procedures, the board may, those were some of my favorite books as a kid, the board may grant or deny a hearing at its discretion. If the board chooses to grant the hearing, then according to your policy and process, you have different options for what that hearing looks like. It could be simply a record review where the board reviews and makes a decision based on the documents, or it could be some sort of hearing where there is live testimony or presentations, And so what the board will be deciding in July is whether to grant or deny the hearing, and if granted, what the hearing will look like.
All right. So we have 5 minutes, but we may need to add a little bit of time to that. Ms. Walker, I haven't started with you yet, so go ahead.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
So just to be clear, this is a discretionary hearing, which means we have the right, this is not a personnel, this is not a student related. We have the right to choose those three, choose your adventure choices when it comes to this particular hearing from this particular parent. And is that the book that we're given to read, correct?
Correct.
The book stamped, okay.
And I'm happy to answer, if there are questions about how to interpret and apply the policy or the applicable statute. I'm happy to answer those in more detail in closed session today, and I'm sure Mr. Vogel would be prepared to answer additional questions in July if there are any.
Okay, very good.
So
Ms. Craybill?
A quick question. So before we make a decision on granting the appeal or denying the appeal, do we all have to have read the book?
That is a good question that I can answer in closed.
Okay.
Because it involves what the legal implications may be.
Ms. Barnhart, did you have your hand?
I thought, I was under the interpretation that we had to have it read before the next meeting, so I thought yes. But.
Okay.
So we're not talking about the process, we're talking about the process for a particular appeal, the book that we all have.
Yes.
And so on.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A little bit different there.
Yep. Again, working on clarity. I'll get there eventually. Anything else? So,
And we will take a vote on that night?
We will take a vote whether to, yes, we will take a vote that night whether or not to approve the appeal, deny the appeal, and if we approve the appeal, then whether we want to have a records review.
Okay, got it.
Not as a document. I would like to say that I don't think that, we have no time on there anyway. I think 15 minutes probably would be a good amount. I don't think this is a 5-minute discussion.
And Mr. Wildebohr,
Ma'am?
could we have a little more explanation in the next steps there? Because right now we only have board discussion. So if we are planning on making a decision or we might make a decision, then I think we should capture that there so that the general public will know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we need to have, and that's why it's under new business, but we can rephrase that.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, book review appeal process is misleading.
Okay.
I would think that, as we started out by saying we're going to talk about that process, but we're actually going to decide whether or not to hear an appeal that night.
We're going to do them both.
Yeah, right. We're not going to hear appeal that.
No, we're going to decide that we want to hear
Do
the
the
appeal.
appeal that night, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, we're only going to,
So-
we're not going to have the hearing that night.
I
Just wanna make that
think we
clear.
need to let the public know we're going to make the decision whether we're going to approve or not
Right.
approve an appeal to a particular book.
Okay, so what would be a
We
better
can
way to
capture
say
that
it?
in the Jason could probably help us.
Yeah. Mr. Weber? Is there a better way to
And
say
I'm
it?
happy to work with staff on how to describe it and what the agenda item will look like. But it's, the board is considering a request for removal.
Maybe an individual review, appeal, book review?
We could just put what we're.
Why don't we
Any
just write
reason you don't
stamp,
name the book?
Stamp.
put the book
Yeah.
down?
That's- You
Oh,
don't
that's
name the
fine.
book.
Yeah, stamped, okay. That sounds good.
And then maybe,
And again, I'm happy to work with staff.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jonathan can work
All
with
right.
staff on what the description will look like.
All right, let's jump on ahead to old business board professional development training. Mrs.
Yeah,
Grable?
I'll have a handout for you. Nobody has sent me any information except Ms. Barnhart. So I've talked with a couple people and have that. So if anybody's got anything that they have some,
Trainings?
some trainings that they want us to have, then please send them to me. I would say that we should at least leave 10 minutes so that
10
we can
minutes.
have time to check our calendars either for specifics or check our calendars for ranges.
Okay.
So that we can, look into scheduling these trainings.
And along those lines, as you just mentioned, please do bring your calendars.
Bring the calendars,
I
yes.
have a question for Ms. Grable. Like, you're
Welcome.
bringing a list of things with times and dates?
Well, I'm bringing a list of potential trainings
Okay.
and the amount of time that they would take us, like would it take us 2 hours, would it take us 8 hours to do? And just based on things that I have shared, many times, emails that we get, from the NCSBA, emails that we get from other organizations. So I'm just going to list them so we can see that. And I'm looking more for like outside training, not outside, but inside training, but things that, and I'm going to use the guide and the invitation, give us guidance on what we don't know. So I'm just, struggling with the fact that we try and make so many policy decisions about information we have no idea about. And so that, he spoke to it very perfectly on that. So yeah, so I will, and I can make some suggestions on when I know it's available. Because some of them are only available, let's say, April. But some of them are, we can pick our time and the trainer would come and do our training.
I was just interested in if that was going to come with this. Because
Yes, that's my intent.
I didn't come to you with any training
Yeah.
because I was hoping to see what you had. I mean.
Well, if you've got any, bring them. Let's just
I'll
get
look
it
at
all.
your list
Yeah,
first.
let's all throw it out and just, get it together.
Well, and I wanted to open discussion too. I think we all got it because we're all board members. There's a new entity called the Carolina Academic Leadership Network. And so it's my understanding that they, just like the North Carolina School Board Association, we're members of that. We pay dues to be a part of that. And so we all have the opportunity to engage in trainings and to use our stipend. We have a policy that allows for board individual training stipend, but part of the policy says that in the event that there's an outside entity beyond NCSBA, that we would have to come to a board vote of approval. And so I'd like to have a conversation, if we're interested in adding this organization as things arise, that we would be able to use our stipend to potentially travel and do some of the things you're talking about.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because that is important, is that, we don't all necessarily need to go to the fall law conference or the summer law conference. But if we know that they're out there, we could say, well, Ms. Bradford's going to go to that one, and Peter going to go to one, then Melissa and I are going to go to one, and you guys are going to go to one. But with the intent of bringing the information back to us. But yeah, that's the same thing. So I'm just thinking of all the things that I've been to, that I've heard about, things that I would like to have gone to, but, ran out of money, so just so we can get it thrown out there.
Ms. Barnhart, the one you suggested, does it have to be approved so that you could go and get your stipend for it? Is that how that works?
Well, it's my understanding, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding with policy that in order for us to have like prepaid with our stipend money, which we would work with Ms. Bowie with that, the board would have to approve the training, and thus in policy, board has approved training for NCSBA. And then it has a caveat of saying we can still have other training, but as far as what Ms. Bowie knows to approve, it's from this organization. So with travel, with mileage, with if there's cost for training, this would allow another avenue that the board could pursue training openly. And that's just up for discussion. So I'd like to potentially add that as an opportunity for
I
us to
think this
have.
would be a good place to talk about that, actually. Ms. Walker?
So my understanding, and I don't know if it is actually written in policy, it's NCSBA or the UNC School of Government. Those are the two approved.
And COSPA, we just added that one in because that's what the NCSBA belongs to.
The policy committee?
No, it's the national organization. We don't belong to the National School Board Association anymore. We belong to the consortium of something,
School Board
COSPA.
Association.
Yeah, I gotta remember
So
all
is
this.
that codified in policy?
It should be,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And
Because
that's
we
what they
changed
approved
that.
for payment from our site.
All right, we're going to carry on. So we'll leave 10 minutes for that. We have the Head Start already defined at 5 minutes. Is that about right, Ms. Barnhart?
I'm sorry.
About 5 minutes for the Head Start report?
Oh, yes.
Legislative Committee, about how long do you think that will be?
I can be brief. I just kind of want to go over the next steps since we added the legislative agenda to that as part of the description. So just kind of give everybody awareness and
10 minutes?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's go
sure.
10 minutes.
Can I ask a question on that? Has there been a legislative committee meeting recently that we can all go and watch to be prepared for this, to listen?
Not yet, no. The intent, and that was kind of just as part of the overview, just to let you know next steps, because once the bills have gone through, once the crossover and everything is finalized, to meet together just for us to get an overview, the committee that we can share out with you guys as a board, and then next steps to what it would look like to create a legislative agenda, and potentially, we talked about a regional and things like that, so.
Carrying on to Ms. Walker, I can't read today. Turnaround Task Force update.
I think 5 minutes is good.
5 minutes, okay. And Ms. Mason, EDI.
Maybe 5 minutes.
5 minutes also, okay. All right, so now we go to the end here, we say.
Correspondence. I would like 5 minutes to give a recap of the NCSBA conference that I attended, to share out what I learned.
Okay, very good. We'll have announcements, closed session if needed, and adjournment. Now we're back to Ms. Craybill for her grand total, da-da-da-da.
Oh, I haven't been following along or adding. But I can do that while we're getting ready to go to closed session. But I
Okay,
wanted to
go ahead.
throw out, one of the things, and I know I had asked for it late, but a legal update, and I was referred to our legal counsel to give an update on the legislation that has been passed as of July 1st, because it's my understanding that what we haven't gotten passed on July 1st will not go into law. It will be rediscussed at the short session in February. So is there a place on here that we can add that so that we can get an update from, and I would like to hear it from, from either Dr. Faust's point of view, from what the superintendents are hearing, from our legal counsel, who will be Mr. Vogel at the time, and, we can hear what the legislative committee has to say. But I think a lot of the legislative committee work will be informed by what happens as of July 1st.
Well, because we are late in doing that, we really can't do it here, but we can, and I think this is exactly what I was asking you guys to do, so I appreciate that. Why don't we will amend the agenda at that time to add it, so we will add, what do you think, probably 10 minutes there. We'll know that, but we just need to take a vote at that point to do that.
And I would also I'm going to request that we add a discussion on the agenda review process.
Okay.
To see
very
if that's
good.
something that we still want to hang tight with.
Okay, well, we'll add both of those. Let's add a total of probably 20 minutes then.
Yeah.
So now how long is our meeting?
I'll add it up.
She's adding. While she's adding, I'm going to read this, because it's not up there, very quickly, and it's really great small print, so I'm going to have to really reach it out here. My arm's going to have to be really long. I will call for a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318, 11A 1, 3, and 6, to consider personnel matters and to maintain the confidentiality of personnel records under NCGS 115C-319 through 321, to prevent disclosure of the student records rendered confidential under the FERPA and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G, and to consult with the board's attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege, including the cases captioned John Doe's 1 through 14 versus New Hanover County School Board of Education, et al., 19 CVS 2745, and Jane Doe's 1 and 2 versus New Hanover County Board of Education, et al., 20 CVS 1395, and Jane Doe 3 versus New Hanover County Board of Education, et al., 21 CVS 4707, consolidated matters. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. First and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. We are in closed session. Ms. Craybill, do we have a time?
3 hours and 66.7, like
66.
45 minutes.
45.
Yeah.
So 4 hours.
And I factored in 10 minutes of transition time.
Oh, that's good. So we're before 10 o'clock. Anybody want to take bets? All right, see you all in the next room. to accept or to
So moved.
personnel report. We have a motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
We have first and second. Walker seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes 7-0. Next order of business is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion to adjourn. Do we hear a second? We hear a second. First and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Passes 6-1. We are adjourned. Thank you, Mr. McManus. Thanks, sir. Keeps us on our toes.